let's go ahead and pass it on to Marion, and she's got her cutting board all set up, so we're just gonna have to enjoy her voice for this evening.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can see me. Hi, these are my nostrils. I'm Marion Baker. These are gonna be my hands. So yes, I work for Georgia Department of Natural Resources, the fisheries management section, but I've been fishing since before I could walk. So I'm gonna talk to you guys a little bit about a few different methods of cleaning fish. So there, I'm going to go over basically filleting. I probably won't have time to get to the staking part, but I'm going to go over field dressing. Yes, you can field dress a fish. Sometimes people think that that's just for game animals, but you can field dress a fish. And in fact, certain species you should field dress fish if you can. Can everyone hear me okay before I go any farther? Okay. And everyone can see my cutting board and my lovely fly population, right? Okay, awesome. All right, so one thing I like to say is kind of like, as conservationists, it is important to know basic fish cleaning because, you know, bad stuff happens, right? No matter how hard we try, sometimes we might catch a fish and then the fish doesn't make it. You know, we'll try to release it or whatever and it doesn't make it. So oftentimes it's the most ethical thing to do at times can be to keep the fish if it's a if it qualifies, you know, under the fishing regulations for a certain size. So also as history has kind of progressed, we don't have as many anglers out there that are actually fishing for sustenance anymore. Anglers oftentimes are more so focused on, you know, catch and release. They want to fight the fish and then just let it go, right? Or I should say, take the picture, then let it go. But that has caused a little bit of concern with certain fish populations because fisheries biologists actually use harvest as a management tool to manage fish populations. And if anglers aren't harvesting enough, then it can actually lead to certain species overpopulating or unhealthy fish populations. So certain harvest, you know, as long as you're following the fishing regulations for the state of Georgia, harvest is actually encouraged. If it's something you're willing to do, then it is very much encouraged to do so. So also, you guys may be familiar with aquatic nuisance species. They're becoming more and more of a problem. You may have heard of fish like the northern snakehead or the silver carp. And those species have made their way into Georgia, unfortunately. And one of the best ways that we can help manage nuisance species populations oftentimes is through harvest. So you may have heard about lionfish and saltwater fish. And now there's lionfish tournaments people have, and you know, all the different creative recipes that people have come up with for cooking lionfish and silver carp as well. So so even if you plan to only catch and release, it's good to have, you know, the knowledge to be able to clean a fish in case the unexpected occurs. So if you don't plan to harvest your catch, you should release it right away to ensure the best chances of survival, unless of course it's a nuisance species. Please don't release that. So the longer you can keep your catch alive, the better chance that the meat will not spoil. And also, the better it will taste. Okay. So that's why, anyone ever heard of a stringer? So that's kind of the idea behind stringers. A lot of times people go fishing, they bring what's called a stringer. and it's basically a string that, kind of run through the gills of the fish. And then you place them back in the water, and the stringers attached to either a bank or a boat, so that they can't really get away, but they're staying alive and they're staying in the water. So that's because you want to keep the fish alive right up until you clean it. And if you're not going to be able to clean it right away, you need to put it on ice. So, all right. To first talk about, oh, I forgot to tell you one thing. Sorry. A fish can be kept on ice or chilled for up to 1 day before cleaning. So I've actually done it longer, but and I stayed alive. So, but that's the recommendation. So ideally, whenever you go to clean a fish and you've already frozen it, you don't want it to be frozen when you go to clean it. So you want to thaw it out. The proper way to thaw it out is rinsing it in cold water, or maybe putting it in a fridge overnight. But you definitely don't want it frozen. There is one exception to that, and that is the staking method. Some people like to do what's called staking their fish. For that method, it actually helps for the fish to still be a little bit frozen, just a little. So, okay, so I'm going to go over supplies real quick that I'm going to be using. So, all right, this is my fillet knife, and this is cheap. You can use an electric fillet knife. A lot of people do, especially if you've got a lot of fish you've got to clean. It makes it go by so much quicker if you can get an electric fillet knife. But I do not have one, and I also feel more comfortable using the old-fashioned fillet knife I've got here. I've also make sure it's sharp. Okay, using a dull knife, that could be really bad and lead to serious injury. So make sure it's sharp. Also, I got a spoon. I'll explain that later. I have gloves. I'm going to show you another pair of gloves. The reason that I recommend gloves, especially if you're a beginner, is because fish are slippery. That's not news. So when you have a knife in one hand and something slippery in the other hand, it can cause injuries. So I recommend wearing gloves if you are new to this. So I also have a bucket here ready, for discards. But I will say that if you guys do get to cleaning a fish and you're on fishing in public waters, and like you're on a state park or a public fishing area, many of those have fish cleaning stations that I would highly recommend using, because then you don't have to worry about discards like the guts and the heads of the fish and all the fly problems that I'm starting to have. So basically they have grinders, and so you can just essentially put, as you're cleaning your fish, you're getting your fillets, you put your fillets in your bucket that you're going to keep, and then you turn the fish cleaning grinder on, flip the switch, and then you can just grind up all the guts and never see them again. They just disappear nicely. So anyone can use those fish cleaning stations at public fishing areas as long as you have a Georgia fishing license as well. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started. So first fish I'm going to do is this guy. Just kidding. All right, just found that. Okay. I'm going to first go over field dressing. So this is a trout. Now, with all the fish I'm going to show you today, they have been frozen and have been thawed throughout the day today. So they're not in perfect condition. I don't know what's going to be on the insides of them, but Ideally, you want to do it, like I said, right after you catch your fish, you want to go ahead and clean them if you can. And in fact, if you want to save yourself from having mess at home, I recommend cleaning them at the site where you catch them if you can. If there's not a fish cleaning station for removing your discards, this maybe, I don't know, might be good to chuck discards in the woods or something. You definitely don't want to leave them there on the bank of public water bodies. So also don't really want to put them into those public trash bins either. You want to try to avoid that. I would encourage you, the best thing I can think of would be to chuck them in the woods. Or bag them, take them home. Then get rid of them.
What
Okay.
do you think about putting them back in the water?
That, I asked somebody about that recently, and it could actually cause more problems with, so has anyone ever heard of like a fish kill? Okay, so there's actually a fish kill hotline that people can call whenever you see dead fish in the water. So it could lead to another angler possibly seeing dead fish in the water and calling in a fish kill, which then prompted a whole investigation from not only the Environmental Protection Division, but also the Fisheries Management section and a few other people that all have to get involved. There's a lot of paperwork, a lot of time spent when, in this case, it was just discarded fish, not actually something caused by, like bad water quality or turnover in a lake or pond. Not caused by something natural or artificial. So that's the reason I was saying, worst case, maybe chuck them in the woods. I don't think they'll disappear quicker too. Okay, so first thing I'm going to talk about field dressing. I've got my rainbow trout here to demonstrate field dressing. So field dressing is basically just removing the internal organs, the head, and either the scales or the skin. Now, rainbow trout, a lot of people don't know this. A lot of people think that trout don't have scales, but they actually do have scales. They're just really small. So on a trout, if you're field dressing a trout, you're going to remove the scales first. If you're field dressing a catfish, you're going to remove the skin. So again, that's just to minimize or to keep the fish from spoiling. So you want to basically separate the meat, the muscle tissue, which is this part of the fish that we eat, from the internal organs. And also there's organs up here in the head. So that's why I leave rid of the inner scales, internal organs, and the head. And then you pack it in ice. Okay, so first we're going to scale. All right. So I can't guarantee how well this is going to scale because, like I said, it was frozen. But to scale, you're basically going to take a spoon. You can use other devices, I guess, to scale fish. But you rub a spoon across the scales in a backwards motion. Scales are kind of laying flat like this. So if you want to rub it backwards, so from tail to head and lift those scales up. And I don't know how well you can see, but the scales, there they went. Sorry, are actually coming off. Okay. So it might take you anywhere from 30 seconds to a minute, maybe on each side. You want to make sure you get all those scales. Off. Another tool that you can use. So if you ever get like one of those fish fillet knife kits or sets from like Bass Pro or something, sometimes they come with a knife, a serrated knife, and this one actually has a scaler on. I don't know how well you can see that. So it's got like the knife on one edge and a scaler on the other. So you can use that. I actually have a multi-purpose tool as well that actually has a fish scaler on it as well. So there's lots of different multi-tools that actually include scalers. You can get like pocket knives that have scalers in them too. So
Backside of the mouth.
yeah, let's try it with this one. So that's actually working a lot better. Oh yeah. He's gone. Is everyone kind of seeing like the difference? I know it's like,
And do you recommend removing the scales because you plan on eating the skin, or what is the thought process there?
so it's basically part of, well, yeah, so lots of times people will eat the skin. It just depends on your personal preference. That is something I forgot to mention, so thank you for reminding me. So with a lot of fish, there's actually a very thin layer of fat underneath the skin that usually is going to get removed if you fillet it. But if you keep it, you know, it does make it taste much better because of that thin layer of fat. But in my experience, most anglers don't want to eat more fat. So they will just skin it out or fillet it and completely remove the skin. So it, like, if you're in like survival mode though, and you're out, you're lost in the woods and you go get a fish to clean, I would recommend eating the skin because of that layer of fat there. But in everyday mode, likely would remain fat. At least that's what I most commonly see. So so basically you've got it all scaled. That's the first thing. The next thing you're going to do is remove the head. You're going to look towards the base of this pectoral fin. This is their pectoral fin. Here, the base of it. And you're going to remove the head. I may need to get a different knife for this one. This is kind of a bigger rainbow trout. Okay, so then you would for discards. If you're a nerd like me, you'll go and pull the fish's otoliths, which are its ear stones, and try to figure out how old it is, because that's one of the nerdy things I do. But I will save that for another. Okay, so now that we've got the head removed, now you're going to locate basically the fish's vent here, which is this hole right before its anal fin on the underside of the fish. And you're going to cut the fish all the way up here with your fillet knife. Kind of shallow, you don't want to really go too deep. When you get to these pelvic fins right here, if you need to go around them, that's fine. Guys are probably lucky that you can't smell what I'm smelling right now. Oh, look at that egg. Okay. So now you want to, that's basically open up their body cavity where all the internal organs are. And now we're going to remove them. So Yeah. Start here with the intestines. And another reason you want the fish to be really thawed and not frozen, and so that the organs come out. Really crazy, doesn't have eggs. This one died of natural causes. I just didn't say that. It was in our aquarium here at the Fish Education Center, and it died natural causes. So all I did was ask them if I could freeze it for a demonstration. So now, this, so what you can see now, it's still got another organ in there, okay? So you see this dark red, this is actually the fish's kidney, okay? So you actually may need to get either your thumbnail, but since this is bigger, you might actually need to get a spoon or knife to scrape that kidney out. Get a knife. But on most normal sized trout, they you could just use your thumbnail and scrape it out, or get a spoon. And as I'm rubbing it across, I know you guys probably can't hear, but it's clicking. That's because it's the spine, the backbone of the fish behind that kid, behind the kidney. So just clean it out really good. Make sure you get any of the organs. So might want to see cavity. Probably a little bit more here I can clean up. That's basically field dressing there. So when you put it in the cooler, you can actually pack ice up in here and then also around this. You don't have to pack ice up in here. A lot of people do. All right. So I'm also going to demonstrate now on a catfish really quick because catfish don't have scales. They have more of a skin. So same thing, dressing, but with a catfish. There we go. And you can always clean your clean board. Normally I would probably clean it in between. Just to make sure I get all those organs. I don't want them possibly touching, the muscle, the meat, the leg. Okay, so this is a small channel catfish. And these, they actually have catfish skinning competition. Who can do it faster. I am not fast at it, but they're pretty cool to watch if you ever get bored. Anyway, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my fillet knife and I'm going to feel with my finger. There's a groove on a catfish right behind the pectoral fin. So make sure you guys can see this real good. So, and your finger kind of will fall into it. Okay, that's where you want to make a very thin cut on each side. So, kind of angle it in a little bit, in towards the head. Then, this is their dorsal fin here. Be careful because their dorsal fin, that's where one of their spines are. So, try to get it up close so you can see. Catfish have a spine there on their dorsal fin, and they also have spines on their pectoral fin. So, try to get a good view of it. Right there. So when you're handling it, just be careful. Some people actually just go ahead and remove the spine before they do anything on the catfish, just to make sure they don't get poked. I would prefer to leave them because I actually use them to kind of anchor the fish for this next part I'm going to show you. So next part is you're going to cut the catfish. You're going to go behind its dorsal fin here, and you're going to cut at a 45-degree angle towards the head. Sorry, see. Until you hit, basically you're going to feel resistance, and that's when you can stop. So now, next step is I'm going to grab my catfish skinning pliers. They look like this. But you do not have to use catfish skinning pliers. I had never seen catfish skinning pliers until I was an adult. I didn't even know they existed. Regular pliers work too. But the goal here is you're going to try to skin it on each side. And the reason people use these catfish skinning pliers is a lot of area that can grab onto the skin and pull it down. So going to kind of hold the head and just grab a little bit of that skin. And there's where I said why I leave the spines on. I use that to kind of anchor them. So I pull the skin away. Good.
Some fun fact, these catfish skinning pliers are also very useful for skinning squirrels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's awesome.
I'm getting some fillet on here. So normally this wouldn't happen. This is because this is a very small one and because it's been previously frozen, then thawed. So another reason why you really want to try to clean them after you catch them. But my boss didn't let me go fishing today. So cross that, then you're going to remove the head. Now you can do this either by kind of bending it like this or bending it like this. And when you remove the head, you're just popping it. When you do that, the gut, well, some of the guts came out, not all of them, but oftentimes the guts will come with it. Some of them came out, other than digestive organs, but not the skin. Some people save the head and make soup of it. I don't, and I can't offer any guidance on that because I've never done it. Okay. So that was real quick, the steel dressing on a catfish. Do the same thing, like I said, with the trout. You can pack it in ice now. Rinse it in fresh water. Rinse it in, so this is a freshwater fish, so you'd likely be around fresh water. Rinse it in fresh water if you have a source of fresh water. And then pack it in. All right. Next thing. Any questions so far? No? Okay. So the next thing I was going to show is a fillet. And I'm going to use a largemouth bass for my example on a fillet, but you can fillet a large catfish, you can fillet a crappie, you can fillet a panfish if it's big enough. Fillet is definitely the preferred method that I would recommend. But you can't always do that for smaller fish. So, and I'm going to bring out a panfish in a little bit and show you a small one that I'm not going to do. So, this is my largemouth. Since I'm going to fillet it, I don't need to worry about taking the scales off and all that. I'm basically going to go ahead and just cut out the meat from the fish and then remove everything else. Okay. So with a fillet, you're going to make a cut right here behind this pectoral fin. with your fillet knife. Well, so there's a gill plate right here. Don't try to cut through that gill plate, because that'll just cause problems. So you're gonna cut, and then you're gonna cut until you feel kind of like there's a resistance, or like maybe there's a bone there. There is. So stop cutting there. And you're gonna, I turn the fish so that I can then make my next cut from where I left off here all the way down to here. This is going to be a shallow cut. I'm not trying to go deep. I'm just trying to explore it. And definitely want to hold the head. Some people will use a clamp, like a, or like a, what you call it, vice grip. They'll actually clamp the head to the table or wherever. As you can see, that's what it's looking like. So I'm not going all the way, just kind of shallow. All right, so now for this part, so you're going to stick your knife back into that original cut that you made. And what you're going to do is once I get it in there, I'm going to turn it. So I'm going to turn it like this. And I'm basically going to start removing the muscle tissue and go all the way down the fish. But I want to be kind of applying pressure as I do that as well. So as you go down the backbone of the fish, you're going to feel a bone that you're kind of using as your guide. You can use the backbone as a guide. And as you go across the different, I don't know the right word, vertebrae, you'll feel like a bump, almost like a speed bump. So when you encounter that, you're gonna, you kind of got to feel it. You can then kind of move your knife to be more horizontal, but you're trying to keep it at a, like basically a 45-degree angle. So I don't know if you guys can see that. 45-degree angle, but if you hit a vertebrae, kind of turn it sideways until you get through that, and then you can go back to it. So you're just using the backbone as a guide. And a lot of it is feel, unfortunately. You can't always see what you're doing. So go down, feel. Oh, yeah. So I'm doing charity in this person. See how much I missed. Woo. So, well, just want you guys to kind of see. So this is the fillet of the fish, the muscle.
I'll drop from 45.
Don't cut it all the way through. You want to leave it attached. And I'll explain why. I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'll try to do a better job on this one. So 45-degree angle down towards the head. Oops, behind the gill plate. So just real quick, just to explain. So the reason that you leave this attached for now is because if you were to go ahead and remove it and then you flip the fish over to do the other side, you lose that support. It makes the fish kind of lopsided and less stable. So that's why you kind of try to leave it attached if you can, unless you're just really good and you don't do that. So, yep, so I've got my cut here behind the pectoral fin. And start making a shallow cut starting head. Going down towards the tail. Once you get down to this part, you can actually kind of just go all the way through. But go around. So this is, you can actually start your fillet a little bit further up here. So right here is going to be the beginning of this one. And you can see about how thick the muscle tissue is there, the meat you're going to be eating. So stick your knife in that first cut. And this time you're going to be turning it 45-degree angle while applying pressure, cutting. And if you encounter a bone, make your knife maybe go down to more so of a flat, and then just to get through it, and then bring it back down. It's kind of hard to explain because it's kind of like a feeling thing. You just got to practice. So. Right, pressure. And if you get bones, it's okay. You can always cut them off when you get the fillet off. Don't go all the way to you cut it off. And then you can actually flip. Right. Actually flip it and use the fact that it's attached, you can actually use that as leverage. Whereas if you go ahead and remove it, it's harder to use the fish as leverage when you go to do this next part. That's why you kind of still leave it attached. Does that make sense? I'm not, yeah, okay. All right, so kind of do the same thing here. You're applying pressure, downward pressure. If you go through, I did mess up here. Oh, there's your fillet. Not my best work, but gotta see. And make sure you check it. Just, you can usually feel if you did get a bone. And if you do get any of the belly fat too, you can always go in and simply just pretty it out. Then make sure you put this in a separate container. Get it away from the, other organs that are here. Some people say that to put it in water, put it in fresh water or like a tap water or something. But some people say don't ever put it in water. That it could ruin the taste of the meat. So I rinse mine off is what I do. I do rinse mine off. Just because there might be a stray scale left on the board or something. So I do like to rinse mine off, whether I go to eat them right away or store them in the freezer. So you can see I missed some meat right in here, especially. Leave it attached. When you get down to the tail, you probably want to try to push in a little harder. Can y'all see? bring it closer. Just to make sure you're getting all that meat or as much meat as you can. So leave it attached and then apply pressure, downward pressure at a 45-degree angle. And if your knife is sharp, I promise you the knife does the work for you. It's really just slides right through you. So, the slides are coming towards my fillets. All right, so I'm actually in a hatchery right now, so fish. I'm kind of half inside, half outside. All right, so what do you do with this? We can get a PFA and they have a fish cleaning station, turn the grinder on and run it through. Like I said, if you're a nerd like me, I'll actually go in and I will remove the stomach because I like to check stomach contents, because if you know what bass are eating or any fish, if you know what fish are eating, you can identify what's in their stomach. It really helps you to decide what lure or what bait you might want to try. It gives you real-time information, better than any local guide could tell you. You can see what they're eating with your own eyes. Also, I would remove the odorless to figure out how old it is. Any questions before I go to a smaller trout? Well, how am I doing on time? Oh no. Okay. Okay, this is basically field dressing, but field dressing for a trout. This one is a much smaller trout. You're gonna locate the vent. Don't see that, it's right before the anal fin. And you're going to stick your fillet knife in that vent and cut down the ventral side of the fish. Don't go too deep. When you get up to the head of the trout, you flip it on its lower jaw here. So this is the underside of the trout. So I don't know what this part is called, but you're basically going to stick your knife underneath of it and all the way through. So, and then kind of out the other side. And then make sure you got your, oh, it's got to go all the way. Make sure you do that initial cut all the way up to the lower jaw. So now, you hold the jaw and you're going to grab that piece that you cut off. We're going to use it well, this one's not working out like usual. Okay, that's okay. You can still do it. So there's usually a simple way where you can grab that piece and then pull. But this one, like I said, is not in the greatest condition. It's kind of just start from the fall part of the bit. But not a problem. You can still just go ahead and remove the head. In fact, a lot of people would do that as their next step anyway. Especially on the size trout.
So just to follow, the very first fish we did, it was also a trout, and that was kind of your traditional way of field dressing a fish. And then right now you are trying.
Sorry, what?
That now you are trying to demonstrate a different technique of field dressing of the trout.
Yeah, so that was a larger trout. This is a smaller trout. You can field dress anything. It doesn't have to be A trout, I could have showed you field dress on, I did also show you catfish, but on anything, field dress, any fish. I just used that because that's what I had, and it was a big fish, was a good one to use for an example. But I also had this small trout to demonstrate the gut. I don't know the actual name for it. A lot of people just call it gut cleaning a trout. But it's what you do in the field is it only works for smaller trout. In fact, this one might even be a little bit too. I wouldn't try to gut clean a trout bigger than like a good size, this or maybe even slightly smaller. So when I got the organs out, this right here, this thing that looks kind of like a bubble, that's their swim bladder. Underneath their swim bladder is that kidney that runs along the spine. Make sure you also remove that. This is where you can try to use your thumb or spoon, get down in there. You know, on the gut cleaning too, I never try to worry about removing the scales either. But I wanted to show you that with the other larger trout. But I would have done it if it was a bass or anything else. But not with the gut cleaning method. So what's my last? Oh, a panfish. Do I have time to do another quick? Okay, so I'm going to really quick lesson eat fish whole or cook them whole. Anybody seen that or know what I'm talking about? Yeah. So my uncle did this, you know, growing up my whole life. This is how I ate shrimp was you cooked it whole basically, except well without the head. You threw the whole fish in batter and fried it up. And then you just have to pick through. If you don't want to eat the bones, you just kind of pick through it and you're eating. But so it's basically the same technique as the field dressing. It's just for a smaller fish. Now, if you have a really big brim, you can fillet it. And in fact, I would, but just to avoid, you know, bones. That's just my personal preference, but you don't have to do it that way. Any panfish like a crappie, a warmouth, a red ear, a red breast sunfish, or what sometimes are called stock knockers or shell crackers, or there's so many different names for this. I can't even think of them all, but this here is a bluegill. The other one. Sunfish. Okay. So on the bluegill, you're going to look on the ventral side here under the pelvic fin, but before the anal fin is that hole, that's their vent. You just locate that hole and start your cut there. I'm glad I wore my glasses. Towards the head. It may be a little tough to cut through. There's actually a bone underneath the pelvic fin, around the pelvic fin, but sometimes you can cut through. All right. I probably need to sharpen it. Or where I have another knife. So after you cut up a bunch of fish, it's good to have, it's like if you've got 12 fish or so that you need to fillet or field dress, your knife is going to go dull. So it's good to have a sharpener.
So of all the names that you just used to describe these fish, you've got your crappie, you've got your bluegill, shell crackers. Is brim kind of the most general term to describe all of them?
Yes. So brim refers to a basically, or panfish. I think they got the name because it kind of is the right size to fit in a pan. At least that's what I like to think. I don't know the real reason they're called panfish. But yeah, so brim kind of refers to a lot of different species. Like I said, it includes bluegill, includes basically any sunfish. However, bass are also like black bass, like largemouth, like the one I did, are also a sunfish. Yet they kind of get their own distinction and don't really fall into brim category, but they are all in the same family. Bluegill and bass are all sunfish. So, cut from the vent up towards the head. You can also, I should have scaled it. Well, I'm not really have time, but come back behind the pectoral fin. So there's the gill plate right here. End of the gill plate right here. Don't try to cut through that. You want to cut behind it. That little groove right between the gill plate and where the blade or meat muscle starts. Then kind of remove I just tore off the pelvic fin, but you can cut it off. And easy access to internal organs. Gonna remove. And clean it out as best you can. Sorry, I didn't have it facing the right way. I apologize. And then, so the way my uncle did it was once it was like this, he battered and scaled and battered and fried it. And he ate it. So he just picked out the bones once he ate through it. And a lot of people still do it that way. It's kind of just your own personal preference. Some people really don't like bones and don't want to have to deal with it when they're eating them. So, any questions? See, I went over, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh.
we can. You're good. I was trying to give ample time for people to ask questions. Coral, did you have a question?
No, I don't have a question. I was just going to say that was really informative. Because as you know, I had a background in marine biology, but we never actually took the next step with it and had to like fillet anything. So that was really informative.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I didn't do the best job, but yeah, I'm glad that you got something out of it. That's cool. Marine biology. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I think that you did a great job, Marion. But what you did demonstrate is that there's a lot of different ways to do this. And so, for example, I cooked up my first bass this last weekend, and I cooked it with the skin on. I didn't take that final layer of skin, the final layer of skin off. And then I ate the skin because I was like, tastes fine. Whereas my husband was like, yeah, and my husband, he was like, no, I'm not eating the skin. And then he just kind of like flaked it off. So really cool, super informative. I got a lot from it. So thank you very much. And no problem about running a little bit over. It was very valuable. Any other questions out there before we thank Marion for staying late?
Hey, Bree, I had a question. This is Gwen. My question was, what is the best way to get the meat off that you wouldn't get through a regular fillet? Like filleting it? Like I know with like a chicken carcass, you can boil it or you can, and cook it that way, and then you get the extra meat off and then it kind of breaks it down. What would you do in a situation if you saw more meat on there that didn't come off when you filleted it? If that makes sense.
Oh, you can still get at it. Yeah, so like on that, so I did leave meat on this, no. Where'd it go? I can't identify my fish anymore. So I did leave meat right here. So what I should have done was apply more downward pressure when I got to this part, but you can always go back and get it. Like, and on one of these fillets, I did go back and get some that I missed. And then I'm putting vertebrae. You can go back and get it. Go back and get out all you want.
Okay.
It won't be like, you won't have your super pretty fillet, but you'll have little bass nuggets.
For sure. Oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
I know I'll take those bass nuggets any day. Very good. Well, with that, friends, we have Artemis, Georgia has an upcoming fishing trip, fishing weekend over in the Statesboro area in July. And then I think also in July, we're going to talk about cooking. And one of the demonstrations that we'll have for cooking will be, it's a water-focused fishing evening. So hopefully we'll actually talk about how do we prepare one of these fish that we just cleaned. So we hope that you are able to join in on one of those activities, and always keep an eye out on the Facebook page and the website for all of the events that we've got going on. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. Bree has my email. If there's something you think of later, I'm happy to answer.
Awesome. Good night, folks.
Thank you.
Right.
Right.
Good night.
Bye.